This is the October 22 SAT. In the first video, I did the first two passages of the 5 passage set. This second video will include the rest of the passages for the English section. Okay, passage 1. The brains of humans are conspicuously larger than the brains of the same genome. 15 million changes. So this paragraph is saying that the brains of humans, they are conspicuously, so they're visibly larger than the brains of other apes, but we don't know what genes kind of prompted this this growth. About 6 years ago, a gene of that. Okay, it's a relative of this. A gene that's not know. Okay, so they found a gene that's a relative of this that is important to early brain development. So this appears to locate in chromosome 1 nearly to abnormal brain size. Okay, we thought, oh, this is incredible, but when the team mapped their precise location, they discovered that the gene wasn't actually the relevant one from it. So when they mapped it out in the location, they found that it wasn't. It didn't have any relationship or correlation to the brain size. We're down harder. Then change with the next official version of the human genome, version 38. This was located in the crucial region. Okay, there were 3 versions. Okay. Genetic analysis of several primates revealed that the 3 genes exist only in humans and in their recent relatives. So they exist only in humans and the Neanderthals and okay, not in chimpanzees. Okay, what's more, the timing together also suggests that this played a role in beefing up human brain size. Okay, not a bad passage. What this passage 1 indicates true of the human genome. It has gone over through another. Yes, this is true, and I'll tell you where it is right here. The human genome has undergone roughly 15 million changes. Okay, it has nearly tripled in size in the last few million years. No, that's not the gene, that's the brain size. It contains many more genomes than the genomes of non-human. They didn't talk about that. It contains only a few of the genes that. Okay, they didn't talk about that. This is the data which concept most likely contributed. So, what contributed to their interest in this gene? Okay, similar genes often play different roles in the development of. Okay, they didn't talk about different species. They were talking about only humans. A single gene typically has varying functions depending where it is located in the genome. I mean, maybe these that are near one another in the genome are duplicated. No, I don't. Never talked about that. Genes that are related to one another tend to have comparable. I don't know. I think this is right. This is tripping me off. A single gene typically has varying functions depending on where it is located. Varying function. I don't think they talked about varying function. They only talked about the brain size stuff. So I think it's straight Z. And where can we find this? 11 to 14. Let's see. It's a relative. So this gene is a relative of that gene. Yes, this is correct because we knew it says that the genes that are comparable with biological development, this is a relative, so it's comparable to this, and it's a gene that they knew was central to early brain development. So I think it's choice A. And again, our answer was genes that are related to one another. They were related, tend to have comparable biological roles in development. Yes. Which was from passage 2? Okay, so we have to read passage 2 now. Most humans have brains that are more than 3 times larger than chimpanzees. It doesn't agree on how the brain size increased gradually and consistently over the past 3 million years. Okay. So primarily by evolution of larger brains in populations of individual species, but also the introduction of larger brain species and extinction of smaller brain ones. Okay. Brain size is one of the most obvious traits that makes us humans related to cultural complex, blah blah blah. The earliest one, brain size is like chimpanzees and they have increased dramatically. Okay, blah blah blah. Now they're gonna do maybe experiment or statistical whatever. Use their historical evidence from 13 okay. The researchers saw that when the species were counted at the clade level, the average brain size increased gradually over 3 million years. The increased evolution of larger brain sizes within individual, like they said earlier. But also, okay, so this is, yeah, but also by this, which they mentioned here. Okay, the study quantifies what the Du said he likens it to how a football. So kind of this is like, okay, what is this last part? If you don't understand, this is, in other words, an analogy. It's an analogy to describe this part. The bigger, stronger players is the brain size. One way to hit the way, but they could also recruit new, larger players and cut the small ones. And this relates to the new, larger brain species and the extinction of smaller brain ones. Okay, which choice from the brain size research may help answer important questions in realms beyond evolution. So, what will it answer? What will the research answer beyond evolutionary or science, whatever, science related stuff? So 47 to 51. Scientists no, that's biology. That's evolutionary biology. 52 to 57. The research this trend was called about evolution again. They're talking about the evolution. That's wrong. 58 to 63. Brain size is one of the it's related to, okay, yeah, this is not evolutionary. He's talking about brain size now, and it's cultural complexity, language, tool making. This is the kind of the broad spectrum of it. So I think it's choice C, and I bet you choice D is evolutionary also. So let's just make sure. So sorry. Okay, I expect. Okay, doing the skull. Yeah, volume. So that's evolutionary. As using line 53, trend most nearly means 53, 53, 53. Trend. Okay. The research shows that the trend, the kind of the, I don't know how to say it in words. The progression, yes. I think it's that. The progression, because they talked about the progression of the brain size and its increase and stuff like that. Main purpose of the fifth paragraph. So what did he talk about in 73 to 81? Like their findings. Kind of like that, their findings. Define a term. There was no term. Indicate the original objectives were earlier. Summarize and conclude. Yeah, their findings. Describe the methodology. No. In the context of the reference to a football coach. Okay, here. Oh, I said it. Analogy. It's a comparison to and I explained it. Bro, not Siri again. Okay. So it's kind of like a metaphor. Create a humorous. Don't think about it as humorous. Establish an analogy. Yes. Yes. Yeah. That was pretty easy. Should specify a key difference. Passage 1 it was not computer simulations. This is okay. That's true. They didn't talk about the. Okay, the problem with this is multiple primate. No, they didn't talk about. They talked about humans. This is discussion. Recent human history? No. I don't know. Yes, they talked about the the gene name, and then this one talked about the population. Remember the individual scale, the extinction, small population, the new large population, that stuff. Both authors state that the modern human brain is about 3 times larger than the brains of chimpanzees. I remember this. I don't think I underlined it though. It's right here. I'll show you. Since humans split from chimps, which have brains roughly a third of human size, so the humans have brain three times chimps, more than 3 times larger than chimpanzees and bonobos. Now they could have put bonobos in the answer choices, but the problem with that is it doesn't say that in the first passage. Did they put it? Yes, they did. But the problem with that is they don't state it in passage 1 because it says both passages. This is line 58, passage 2. Obvious, closest in meaning to which word? Brain size is one of the most obvious traits, the most kind of visible, most not like knowable, that kind of way. So, let's see. Obvious is closest to meaning. I think it's conspicuous. Yeah. Conspicuously means like, kind of like, it stands out. You can't overlook it. That makes sense in terms of talking about the brain. It's not vital, it's not relevant, it's not repeated. It's trying to show that it's like very visible, like you can't miss it. That passage was pretty easy. Passage adapted from okay, for too long now we have heard it argued that a focus on people's rights takes away from we have heard it argued that a focus on this takes away from a focus. So focusing on these rights takes away a focus on people's rights takes away from a focus on addressing the disadvantage of these indigenous peoples. The president is seriously flawed, so he doesn't believe anything. When the man represents a false dichotomy, which means a division, okay, and also makes it too easy to disguise any casual relationship between the action. So kind of the government is being kind of like they're avoiding helping these indigenous peoples accountability and responsibility. Contrast human used for expressing their legitimate claims and also the protections of the law. So the author is saying that we're supposed to be protected by the government and the law, which they're not doing. Focus on pregnant record levels of expenditure annually. So this is money. When to decide the government they explain what the point of the record expenditures. So kind of the government was funding in money, but kind of for no reason. There was no kind of what's the word? There was no like endeavor. The fact is that there has been no being able to has been good enough. So the practical question is lack any accountability whatsoever. If we look back over the devise a whole series of positive without engaging with indigenous peoples in any scenario. So they devised all these policies without engaging with the indigenous peoples, which is wrong. I previously described this as the fundamental flaw, and this was the flaw the author was talking about right here. That is government are trying not to redefine them. We face a major skilling up the capable to human. In March this year, they signed a statement of intent to close the gap in which. So this is just describing what the statement of intent is. These commitments were made in relation to indigenous health issues, but they form a template for the type of approach that is needed. Okay. Provide the basis for the cultural shift necessary in how we conceptualize human rights in this country. And we need to lift our expectation of what needs to be done to address these issues, and of course constitute sufficient. So what an author is saying here is that we need to kind of not rely on the government and take procedures in our own hands. That's what the author is saying. What's interesting is the passage that expanding legal rights was not necessary. No, that's not the theme. Human rights initiatives should generally receive more funding. It was not about the funding, it was about the government. Human rights should be used as for government policy, yes. focusing on India detracts from them? Definitely not. According to Koma, government's failure to locate expenditure is harmful because it reinforces negative about the government's I don't think it's that. Undermines efforts to set no. Perpetuates abusing their authority, no. Allows the government, yeah, because I mentioned this earlier in the passage. They evaded it was like right here. Where was it? Oh, right here. The accountability, right here. It also makes it too easy to disguise any relation between action and therefore limits the accountability and responsibility. So kind of they evade their obligation, their responsibility. Common indicating the aspect of its relationship. The willingness, no. The regret, no. Improvements that have made, no. The resources, yeah, the money, the expenditure. They're talking about the annual expenditure. And then the author criticized it. As used in line 30, decide most nearly means what? The fact is that there has been no simple way of being able to decide, to know, determine, yes. Answer the question before you look at the answer. Based on the passage, would most likely agree that the programs related to indigenous issues would have a better chance of succeeding if the government worked together. They said that. Empowered and to assist, yeah. Work together. It was right here. Has allowed governments to devise a whole series of plans and programs without engaging with indigenous communities. I previously described as the fundamental flaw. So she wanted the government to work with the indigenous communities because they would just fund in money but without any purpose. And oh wow, there's a line evidence. So I said it was like right here, 38 to 41. Yeah, that's the line. Beginning with the ninth paragraph, lines 42 to 88, the focus of the passage shifts somewhat. Okay, 42 to 88. Our child now, we face a man scaling up. Kind of, she's describing, like, it shifted from, like, kind of criticism of the government to, like, kind of, like, what to do in the future. And this is the plan. Description, no. Criticism, yes. Condemnation of officials. Now you may say it's this, but it's not officials. It was about the government. Discussion of tensions. Suggestion of how those tensions. It was not a discussion. The list in love lines 55 to 74. It was the summarization. Yeah. Right here. They summarized it. They signed the statement of intent and it commits all of these organizations, among other things, to do what? They described what the statement of intent would do. It was the plan to change. It was not proposed modifications to the statement of intent. No. Enumerate similarities. No. Identify certain. Definitely not. As used in line 72, targets most dearly means what? Targets. And measure, monitor, report on a joint emphasis in accordance with benchmark and targets. Kind of and. Let me see. Centers. Goals. Yeah, goals. They're benchmarks and goals. They're plans. Recent advisory comment regards the audience of his speech as being what? Skeptical? I don't think never. There was never regarded the audience as skeptical. Poorly informed? I mean, doubtful of the not doubtful. Overtly tolerant of the fact that the government is not stated. Okay, overly tolerant. Okay, let's look at the lines 42 to 43. Our challenge now is to redefine understanding. No, that doesn't show anything. Just showing that she wants to change. Doesn't show anything. We're stuck between these two choices. 44 to 47. We face a man so that they're capable. No, that just shows that there's a big challenge to come to change, progress. 82, 84. Provide the base. Now we can. It just shows. This is just showing that what this the statement provides to the human rights in the country. It doesn't show any attitude the author has toward the people. 84 to 88. And we need to lift our expectation of what needs to be done. So kind of there's an expectancy of the government to provide for them. They're not poorly informed. It's overly tolerant. The fact that the government, yes, they're tolerant, so they allow the government to do it without kind of criticizing them. Last passage. The passage different are made up a lot. No. I'm really not a fan of these kind of like these space or these meteorites, whatever, these kind of these asteroid space solar system passages. Scientists believe that the iron may come from that. But what happened to corner? Few asteroids have spectra that match those of mantle rocks. They're very rare. Some non-metallic come from asteroids. These do not match. Okay, this is just saying that kind of this whatever they're talking about here, it's kind of like the theories or whatever that other people had, and the author is saying that is not true. They must have come from something else. And the reason I don't like these passages is because it's just a lot of information to absorb. So the rarity, what is missing? So the asteroid belt. Okay, they're saying why iron fragments might survive better than rocky fragments. Iron lies in the core, right? Thus, rocky material will be the first to be removed when an asteroid is bombarded, while iron is the last to be exposed. Okay. As a result, rocky material to survive in space. So rocky have to survive in space for longer than iron ones because they are the ones that are removed when they're bombarded by some other meteorite or whatever. What's in the rocky man? Iron core remains as a single piece, making it harder to disrupt. Last, the most important iron is much stronger than rock. Iron is much stronger than rock. Piece of iron. Okay. Most differentiated. Not bad. This paragraph was understandable. Most differentiated bodies broke apart earlier. Perhaps all the. This would mean that the intact differentiated asteroids are very rare in the asteroid belt today. Perhaps Vesta, okay, this is important. The differentiation of others are all that remain. However, collision cannot be the whole story. Primitive asteroids, the parent body of that, are no stronger than the meteorital rocks from different. So how did they not? So how did they survive? Okay, that makes sense. None of the differentiated ones did. That differentiated bodies were relatively rare to begin with. None have survived. So how did Vesta survive? Yes, because it was the differentiated asteroid. Okay, so now came up with perhaps the parent bodies of the iron meteorites formed closer in the sun. Objects would have been tightly packed near the sun, so the collisions would have been much more frequent in the asteroid. Gravitational scattered these fragments into the asteroid belt. Only the stronger iron objects will survive for the age of the solar system. Okay, definitely this passage was my least favorite, and I understood it the least as compared to the other ones. Okay, we have a table here, composition without. Okay. The main purpose of the passage is to discuss the study intended to explain the high number of meteorites. No, I don't think it's that. No. Describe competing hypotheses. They didn't. That was not the purpose of the passage. Present a scientific data. That was not the purpose. Account for the scarcity of a component of it. Well, yes, I think that's true because they did talk about the Vesta and it's the differentiated asteroid, and they asked how many questions. They asked questions about how it remained since it was rare. I was using line 25, disrupt. Which really means what? Most of them, while the iron core remains, making it harder to kind of disrupt, kind of to kind of like impacted, affect, fracture, yeah. Confuse, no. Interrupt, no. You can't confuse interrupt um um the asteroid or whatever. Passive collisional erosion within the asteroid belt was sufficient to explain the situation discussed in the passage, and it sounded expected. So if collisional erosion is sufficient to explain this, then what the asteroid belt has far fewer primitive. I think this is right. Because then they went on and talked about how Vesta was different from these other ones because of not collisional erosion. So if collisional erosion was sufficient, it would show that the Vesta would not survive and there would be far fewer primitive asteroids in the asteroid belt. That was a hard question. Wow. Okay, 35 to 37. Let's see. 35. Perhaps Vesta. No, this is just saying that it doesn't say anything about it would have had fewer. 38 to 39. However, collision cannot be the whole story. No. Doesn't make sense. 39 to 44. Yeah, I think this is the line. Primitive, whatever, are no stronger than. How did so many. Yes, this is the line. This is basically what I said. Yeah. The question lines 47 to 49. What was the question? 47 to 49. Still, if almost all the. How did Vesta survive? Kind of to introduce, kind of like what they would do in the rest of the passage. Highlight an anomaly that challenges an idea. Present a hypothesis. Tested by. Not a hypothesis. And then they're not introduced later. Cast down, like, no. Point out the lack of observation. I think it's A. And I'm not doing this like with the answer. If there's any mistake, just say it in the comment. As usually, line 53, 54 contains most nearly means what? Contains. Astronomer. Perhaps now in the region that now holds. Maybe controls. It's not embodies and it's not restrains. Okay, it could. I don't know. I think encompasses is the better word. I think so. I think I'm gonna go with encompasses. It encompasses that. It surrounds it. Yeah. Contains, encompasses. Yeah, they match. According to the passage, in the presence of iron fragments in the asteroid, asserting that the fragments were what? Okay. So they are formed in terrestrial planets, and the collisions were more frequent, and so they survived longer than the rocky. The fragments were remnants of different. No, they were created relatively close to the sun, and ended up in the asteroid belt. It was not due to the gravity. No, it was due to the collision. Injected. Okay, and ejected by collisions with primitive. Okay, maybe formed in a region of the terrestrial. Okay, formed on and formed in. Which one was it? In the region, so it's in. Wow. And it's 2 answer choices by literally words. It's choice D. Data on the table best support the conclusion that the majority of the mass in the asteroid belt as a whole and asteroids that are. So the majority of the mass comes from what? Let's see. Majority. Which one has the biggest? Let's see. Okay, this one. Wow. Primitive. This one has the biggest percent of the total mass. So it is primitive, yeah. I think they also mentioned that in the passage too. I'm just assuming that the 4 largest asteroids. Which statement about those asteroids is best supported by the data on the table? Okay, assuming the 4 largest are among which statement about these asteroids is? Well, I mean, okay. I don't understand the question. Like, assuming that the 4 largest asteroids are among the 11, which statement about these asteroids? Okay. Let's just go through the answer choices. Okay, we have a large one here. None of them is type V. 2 of them. None of them is likely to contain carbon. Okay, this is not true. One of them is type K. None of them is type V. No, I don't think it's this. One of them is type K and 2 of them are the same type. Well, I mean, is there asteroid types that they have the same? We have one here. We have one here. Yeah, I think this is... We have one here. I think it's D. I think so. I just didn't understand the question. I'm not sure. If I get it wrong, just put in the comment. 50 is D. Taken together, the passage and table of the model proposed by some... which conclusion about type C asteroids? They contain carbon. They're primitive. Okay. Let's see the lines. 1 to 2. Scientists believe that Iron Man came from the... No. That's a belief that has nothing to do with... That's not even certain. 17 to 18. Iron lies in the core. No. Nothing to do with it. Just saying their location. 30 to 35. Do they talk about carbon in any way? No. I don't think it's C. I think it's line D. Let's see. 60 to 64. Both iron and rocky, but only the showers. Later on, the percent of the primitive. Okay, they talked about the primitive, which was the carbon one, formed in the asteroid belt. So it was the age. It has something to do with the age. So the primitive ones would be both iron and rocky, but only the stronger iron. And on the parent bodies. Intact, primitive, and fragments of iron. So kind of, okay, something to do with age. They come from... No, it's not the melted. No. Fewer collisions? No, they're younger, yes. They are younger than type M. Then type M is the iron cores, yes. Because the ones with the rocky, primitive surface, they would be collided with the meteorite, asteroid, whatever, and they would be the first ones to release. And then the iron ones would be much older than the rocky ones. Okay, and that's it for the reading section. In the next video will be the writing and language test, and I think I'll see if I'm gonna split it into 2 parts again. Like half of one video is half of the writing. No, one video is half of the writing and language, and the second video would be the other half. Maybe, and I'll see that. And then the math sections, there will be full video. Yeah. Okay.